Welcome to episode 21 of the Comedy Defect podcast. My name's Winter Phonander. I'm a comedian and the host of this show. This is episode 21 with Daphna Baram. Daphna is a writer, a journalist, a comedian. She's been on circuit for 7 years. She's done 4 fringe shows. She's been to Edinburgh, Hastings, the Camden Fringe, Brighton. She's done all of the fringes. She's a veteran of the fringes. She's very funny. She's so nice as well. Whenever I've met Daphna on the circuit, she's always been lovely to me. She's such great company. I enjoy talking to her about comedy, the mistakes we make when we first start out, and maybe we continue to make until we build our arsenal of tricks that we can, manage to steer our way out of or away from the wall. Sometimes we can steer right into the wall and enjoy it. But hey, I really enjoy talking to her. You're going to enjoy this episode. But what's been happening with me? Well, I've been reconnecting with my family. My brother came over from Adelaide. He brought his nephews. We had a laugh with those guys because they're just totally random. Kids are random. It's crazy. We went for a totally underwhelming Toby Carvery. They're charging for crackling now, an extra £1. But before we went in, the woman who was supposed to seat us, she said to us, "Oh, sorry, we won't have any roast potatoes for at least 30 minutes. We were determined to have this meal. We should just left. We're going to have this meal." The kids didn't want it. One of the kids wanted fish. I say, it's great to catch up with my family and my brother. I haven't seen him for about 10 years. Just nice to kind of catch up with these things, Family, you forget. You've got so many things. People have such busy lives, you've got to catch up. But yeah, that was really nice. We've got a lot more people joining the Facebook group. That's the Comedy Defect podcast Facebook group. A lot of people joined that recently, which is great. You can find out when the episodes come out, or you can comment on the episodes and which ones you like the best. Now, if you can like the page, the Comedy Defect page, if you want to follow the podcast, we're on Twitter. It's at the Comedy Defect. If you want to follow me, it's at Winter Phonander. If you want to come see my live stand-up gig dates, you can go to my website, which is winterphonander.com. You can see my live stand-up gig dates there. Come see me live. I'll make you laugh. Now, I haven't had a chance to do any more of the Guinness Jokes mission, but because I've been quite busy, because I haven't quite moved in fully with the wife yet, so I'm kind of busy right now. But if you want to donate to this podcast, you can. You can go to Patreon, type in The Comedy Defect Podcast, and donate as much or as little as you want. But if you can't kick something back to us, just leave us a nice review on iTunes or Podbean, because it really helps. Now, this is episode 21. You're really going to like this. This is with Daphna Baram, writer, journalist, lawyer, comedian. Enjoy. Daphna Baram.
Hello.
Happy Yom Kippur.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on the Comedy Defect.
It's my pleasure.
And how are you?
I'm good. I'm coming out of a cold, but I'm fine. It's a shit year for me.
Yeah, why was it shit year for you?
I lost my job in April, and I'm trying to make a living while doing comedy.
Yeah.
I'm like, actually, what comedian calls I've gone full time, which most comedians mean I'm on the dole, but I'm not, because I'm not a citizen, so I can't be on the dole. So I'm just basically being skint,
right.
And I'm living pretty much off comedy and off freelance and off that. Yeah, I don't even know if I want to say this, but I've just said it, so you can do whatever you want with it. It's a bit of a tough year for me, admittedly, but comedy's going well. I'm doing interesting stuff. I'm doing great gigs.
Great.
I'm enjoying it, yeah.
And you've done about 4 shows now, is that right? You've done about 4
shows. The current show is my 4th solo show, It might undergo... I'm not quite sure whether it's coming up to Edinburgh in its exact same form, or maybe it will get a new name. It will definitely be a new... I'm writing a lot of new material, but because the show by structure is a show of topical political jokes, plus stories that support it, which are about me and where I'm from or what I've done and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The jokes themselves will change because they have to be topical and kind of fresh. But yeah, it might be called Something to Declare. It might get a new name. And not Something to Declare. What is it called now? Shit. My current show is called Begging to Differ.
Begging to Differ. Right.
It'll probably still be Begging to
So
Differ.
the 4 shows you had Miss D.
I had Killing Miss D.
Killing Miss D.
Which was, I think, not so much classic stand-up show, but a one-woman solo show type of thing. Where my alter ego, Miss D, was basically complaining about me for an hour. She's quite full-on and predatorial and kind of rambunctious. She's the alter ego. I think she's what people would call the id, and I am the ego. So I managed to separate myself from her for the purpose of the show. I was the good, conscientious Daphna who just wants to be a good journalist, liberate Palestine, save the world, do good, find a decent boyfriend. She just wants to get pissed and have sex and destroy my life. That was her mission. She was quite successful. And at the end of the show, we got into some kind of a status quo where it decided that she will not be killed for now. Though actually, I think the outcome, to an extent, was that she pretty much was at least put on hold.
She put on hold. You're just like,
she's not massively around.
She's taking a break a little bit. Yeah.
She is in exile.
You won, yeah.
I won. I'm not sure I'm that happy about it, but I seem to have won. So now I do my stuff. I do political comedy and stuff about immigration and stuff about this country and stuff about my country. And she's waiting until I'm tired of all this shit and she can come back and cause havoc.
Yeah. So the first one was a very personal show, and now this one is more of a how you think and how you perceive the world. You try and bring it in and your thoughts on it.
I think the last two shows are, both of them, all my shows are personal. They're never, I don't think, kind of commentatorial, and definitely they try very hard to not be preachy and not have this kind of I'm right and the Tories are cunts. Not that I don't think that the Tories are cunts, but it's basically I'm attempting to do political comedy from a more personal perspective. A lot of time the butt of the joke is me, and I'm trying to bring the comedy out there in the way that I experience it in the world. Because I think being an immigrant, I am to a great extent subjected to the politics and not just observe it. It has meaning for me. Brexit has meaning for me. It could have practical implications on my life. Things are happening in my world as a result of what is happening in politics. Yeah, this is something to declare. This is begging to differ. Sorry, something to declare was about the experience of immigrating, and it was based around life in the UK, immigration text, which I took last year. So basically my comedy kind of follows what's happening to me. I think this year probably to Begging to Differ, if it will still be called that, will be added bits about the experience of not having a job and looking for work as an immigrant or not as an immigrant. I'll have to see what happens in this process. But just looking for work, I've not done this in years, and it's an interesting experience.
Because you're a journalist by training.
I am a journalist, yes. But I mean, I trained as a lawyer, and I was a human rights lawyer in Israel for a few years. And then
Which is where you were born, isn't it?
I was born in Jerusalem, yeah. So I went to law school, and then I was a lawyer for a while. And I was working with this crazy, amazing human rights lawyer in Israel, a woman called Leah Tzemel. Great, she was the first Jewish lawyer. There were two of them actually, and both of them were women. Her and a lady called Felicia Langer, who moved to Germany years ago, and I think she died recently. But both of them were the only Israeli lawyers who represented Palestinians in military courts in the beginning of the occupation. I think they both started in 1969. So when I joined her office, it was in the early 90s, and it was just, so basically we're dealing with cases of the first Palestinian uprising, the first Intifada, which started in 1987. So in 1991, when I joined, we were all still already dealing with cases of the late 80s. And so I've done that. After a while, I realized I don't want to be a lawyer. To my great shame, the only bit that I was really enjoying was, except from that feeling that I was becoming a legend amongst my lefty friends, at least I was hoping that I was, I think the main thing that I enjoyed was performing in court. And it took me, what I hated was the need to hang on to a piece of paper for 20 years and being responsible for other people's life and liberty, which I now understand more why I was so scared of it. So when you're 20, you don't think that this is scary. It is scary. It is scary it's in your hands. I didn't want it to be in my hands. But I enjoyed the performance. And then I went into journalism, and I became a news editor in really, really hard and violent years in Israel, which covers basically all years in Israel. But this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, the years of the second Intifada, suicide bombings everywhere, Israeli retaliations, bombing of villages and towns. It was very gory. It was also a very scary time. I also talk about this, I think I spoke about this in Killing Misty, and in the second show, aka Misty, I was telling the story of the experience of being a journalist there.
Because I saw I think Killing Misty. So you did some you do army training as part of your schooling, is that right?
No. What you do is normally what happens to Israelis, it's not a part of your schooling.
Right.
But basically the route for most Israelis, especially secular Israelis, is that you finish high school and immediately you go into the army. It's conscription, it's not your choice. Women go for 2 years, men go for 3 years. it's a massive chunk of your teenage years basically put into that. So when I was at my army job was to teach. So I was sent to a short teaching course, and then I was teaching other soldiers. Basically literacy, mathematics a little bit, English. And these people, there are different sort of groups of soldiers that you could be assigned to teach. I was assigned to teach older soldiers. So these people were, my God, they were younger than I am now, but they were way older than I was then. So they were in their 30s, mostly early 40s. And they were soldiers who already, they worked for the army, basically. They were cooks or drivers, and, and they were on a long contract with the army. Many cooks and drivers, some, kind of in charge of discipline, mechanics, people like that. And the army gave them the opportunity to complete 10 years of schooling. Many of them didn't even have a formal 8 years of schooling.
Right.
Because, many of them were immigrants, or the parents immigrated from the Middle East. Right. And they didn't get to go to school, or they went to school but were taking out to support their families, and work, or quite a lot of them were dyslexic but undiagnosed. So because at the time they were not looking for it, people just thought they were stupid or retarded, as they call them, or lazy, and so they missed the opportunity for schooling. And now, when they already were older, had children mostly, they get this second chance. So that was actually quite a good thing that the army did. I mean, because considering that these were the early years of the First Intifada, and many of the people who went to school with me were just, walking around the West Bank, beating people up, breaking people's legs, which was the order from Rabin, the Prime Minister at the time, the Minister of Defence at the time. I got to give people some education. So for me, I'm quite grateful for my military service. I think it did something interesting. That was many times also moving, and I've done some good. So
that's great.
Yeah, that was quite good actually. I enjoyed it. And that was, I think, my first experience at performance. Because teaching is performance. I think that's
crowd control as well, huh?
There's crowd control, there's performance. The reason I chose to do that was that at the time, when you teach younger soldiers, people who are conscripts, which is also a thing that you can choose to do, the teaching involves also being their commander. So it's like, do your maths, so I'm going to run you around the building and make you kind of do push-ups. Now, looking back at it, Miss D would have enjoyed it quite a lot, but at the time I was quite a shy girl. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to work with people who wanted to study and who would feel grateful for the opportunity to do that. And these people, these career soldiers, were more it. Like, they were at an age where, when you're 40, you know it's important to be able to read and write. Or more like, what the punishments and the repercussions are if you don't. You know that you are walking around being worried that your children would find out and look down at you. You don't really connect with your children because all the time you're hiding behind a newspaper that you cannot really read, and you go ask your mum that's got a headache.
Of course.
It was interesting to watch how within the course of the 5-month or 8-month, depends of the course, these people were reconnecting with their kids. Fortunately, many times they were less connecting with their wives. There was a fine balance in these families where many times the women who were a little bit more educated were kind of... It means that you can control the funds, you control the relationship with the schools, and all sorts of things were kind of turning around. So it was interesting as a very young person to watch that. I think only in retrospect I understand some of the things that I experienced, but it wasn't a bad experience.
They're enabling their other half to be dyslexic and not as well educated, because then he can control. So it's like, you're upsetting the whole balance of the family right now.
It is upsetting the balance of the family.
They've got way more options now. Now they can do all their own things and realise what the hell's going on.
They can check what I'm spending money on. They can go and speak to the teacher in the school. They can talk to the kids. Who manages the relationship with the children, I think, is a big thing in families. I don't have kids myself, but I can imagine. And from what I'm watching from, parents who have friends, and there is, people don't like talking about it, but there is a kind of a balance of power of who can do that. So it was an interesting time.
So all your family is still in Israel?
Yes. Yes. I have my mother's there, my father and his new wife. His new wife he's been married to for 30 years now. And I have a brother and 2 half-brothers, and I have nephews and a niece, So they're all there in Jerusalem.
It's like that new act competition. It's like you could be a new act for 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Won the newcomer award. 30 years on the circuit. What?
Yeah, I was really weird because they invited me to their silver wedding or something like 5 years ago. And I was like, What?
What do they do? Are they involved in? Are they lawyers as well? Or what
no, they're not lawyers at all. My father's a journalist. My mother was a civil servant. She worked for National Insurance. And my brother Gideon, he's basically the deputy CEO or chairman of a football team. Jerusalem is divided between supporters of Beitar Jerusalem, which is a right-wing, quite a racist team with quite an international reputation or infamy for being, they're racist, they don't have Arabs in their team, they have quite strong connections with racist violence in Jerusalem. And our team, Hapoel Katamon Jerusalem, which is a fan-owned team, a bit like Barcelona, that's where the similarity ends though. Well, we're quite new.
Everyone's, wherever you're from, you're going to support that team. I'm from there, they're my team, that's it.
Yeah.
Bad, you got to the death, isn't it?
But you can decide which one you support. So it's like, you can decide if you support the racist team or if you support the smaller team.
This is very true.
Yeah, that's the decision that you make. Yeah. Are you... I mean, in many places, this is a very political thing. I mean, you know that you're Irish. I mean, it says everything about you, who you support in sports and who you follow. So,
wow, that's interesting.
The thing
Celtic
with
and Rangers.
Exactly.
Sure, of course.
And the thing with the Hapoel Katamon Jerusalem is that they also have a vast array of community work. So basically they have teams of children, Jews and Arabs play with each other, and Ethiopian children and poor children and rich children, and they do a lot of work in the community that way. They work with a lot of disabled people. They have a lot of women's teams. So my whole family is involved in that. My brother, his wife, my mum, my dad. It's like the whole family is somehow involved with that, which is quite exciting. I mean, when they go there, the first thing that happens is they pick me up at the airport, they take me to the match.
Great.
It normally happens on Friday. I do volunteer stuff for them. I translate stuff into English. I'm trying to get people like donors, whatever.
It creates a massive sense of community. Like what it is. It's like a tribe, isn't it? Really, you follow your tribe, and hopefully, you choose wisely. Hopefully.
It is, and it's very hard in Jerusalem because I feel often so alienated because of how different my politics is to what the mainstream is in Israel in general, and in Jerusalem in particular. Jerusalem is very right wing, very religious. So that it's this little enclave where there are people who still. Believe in the same things, people who think there's hope for that city, it's strange because I don't really feel that there is, but their optimism and their hope and the work that they put into these things is really catching. So I think my last visits there, I felt a little bit happier and more optimistic. My sense of resonance was somehow becoming stronger.
You started comedy in what year?
2010, I started comedy. It was almost a direct result of the fact that I had a heart attack in June 2009. I don't even know how much to talk about this. I was talking about this also in comedy. I think it was in AKA Misty as well. I thought I was actually going to talk more about this in comedy, but you never know, because when I got into it, I thought, okay, this is going to be my heart attack therapy. I'm going to be talking about and also I thought after I had the heart attack, especially as I had it 2 years after I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, so all these were kind of really life-changing events, and I thought that all my comedy was going to be about being a sicko. I really thought this was going to be, and because you've known me in comedy for a long time, this has never been my main thing.
No, not at all.
I mean, even the 5 minutes that I was talking about the heart attack, I was actually talking about the kind of drugs that you can score in an ambulance, so it wasn't like, but I really thought at the time, welcome to your life as a sicko. This is what I thought. Now I think back on it. I realized that this is who I was. I thought, okay, this is a new sort of way of being, and I'm going to wear it well. I'm going to be that cool, sick person. Yeah, I've got a cardiac condition, but it didn't really overtake my identity in any way, but I thought it was going to happen. I had a heart attack, and then just around the same time I had the heart attack, I got to do 2 wedding speeches, one for my friend Yael and her husband Peter, and the other one for my friends Kit and Megan. So Yael's wedding was just before the heart attack. Kit's wedding was just after. They were quite successful wedding speeches, and people said they were funny and moving and stuff, and I discovered that I was good at wedding speech. It was the first time, because in Israel you don't really do that. I mean, I think now people do that a bit because they're influenced by American films, but there's no tradition of it. And we don't have maids of honor and stuff like that. I was the elf maid of honor. I didn't know what was my job. I mean, I thought I probably am supposed to, I thought you're supposed to sleep with the best man and have a speech. Best man was gay. The speech. So I just had to do the speech. I also thought Elle was going to get my dress for me. It's going to be some disgusting color like peach.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that I need to get my own dress and I can wear whatever I want. So it was kind of a combination of good news and bad news. So I did that speech, and then I went and had a heart attack at the gym. It was honestly like 3 or 4 days later. I wasn't expecting to have a heart attack. I was super fit at the time. I was going to the gym 6 times a week. No, 'cause I would have, 10 years earlier, totally earned it. Like, I was sitting in an office in Jerusalem, smoking 90 cigarettes a day. No, not 90, sorry, 70. Things were exploding, like, I hate the word literally, but they were fucking exploding literally under my window.
Right.
And all the time bleepers were going off. Do you remember bleepers?
Yeah.
Bleepers were going off, and people were running like in the movies, and were like, another one. And sometimes you had 3 a day, and you just feel it was personally against you, and stuff like that. And then I was like smoking all these cigarettes, and I was about 30 kilo overweight. So I was way more overweight than I am now, and God knows that's sufficiently overweight. It was massive amount of stress, both at work, but also just even when work was over and you're going to go home, you didn't know if you're going to get there. It was just, that's when I should have had a fucking heart attack. Not when I was like at the gym in haringey wearing a Lara Croft outfit, like really skinny. I swear to God, I had abs. I was like the healthiest that I've ever been in my life. But I had a clot in my heart because when you smoke, the clot just sits there and waits for an opportune moment to burst, and that's the moment that it chose. So then, they got me in the ambulance, and I used to tell this joke. It wasn't even a joke. Sometimes the great thing about living a long life with a lot of shit happening in it is that you don't need to make shit up. So I was in this ambulance, and they were asking me if I was in pain, and I wasn't. But I said that I was in pain so that it would give me some drugs. And that's a weird thing, because when you're in the ambulance, you still think, I might not end this journey. And still you think, maybe I can score some morphine. That means you'll probably live. I mean, like, what kind of person?
That's it.
So,
still thinking about the future, aren't you?
Yeah.
Still like, I'm going to be okay. I'm just wanting to know where my next fix is going to come from.
But also, if I'm not going to be okay, I might as well go with a bang rather than just... It's better to die with the drugs than without the drugs. If you're dying, you're dying. If you're not dying, you're not dying.
Yeah.
It was...
In for a penny, yeah.
But then, and it was quite... you're in a great mood. I don't know why I say you. I was in a great mood while I was having the heart attack. And I think it was a rewarding event to everybody involved. Like the team in the ambulance, they were laughing. The doctors were laughing. Everybody was laughing. I was cracking jokes all the time, which is, in retrospect, I guess adrenaline kicks in and something comes out of you, and you think, I'm funny.
It's life or death, though, isn't it?
It is.
It's obvious, I know, but it's like, you're like, well, hey, look, I might as well enjoy this moment. I could die any second.
And I think it is this adrenaline thing.
Yeah.
And also I was in protest. I really thought this was unfair. I was not supposed to have a heart attack. I was way too fit to have a heart attack.
You've not earned this heart attack.
You've not earned
this. All this fitness, and then you're like, well, how am I where's my reward?
Nothing. I didn't get nothing. It was just terrible. So you have all this kind of cheerfulness, but then you wake up in the hospital the next day, and that's what it hits you. First of all, you're kind of in pain because they put a tube through your groin, and it's like, and they don't let you get out of bed. You just sort of, you feel miserable, and also you see who you're surrounded by, because you might be 39 and looking quite hot, and you just kind of think, this is incidental. But then everybody around you is kind of moaning and groaning, and you like kind of, oh God, it's just not. Intensive care is a place where you don't really want to be.
It's not glamorous, is it? It's not glamorous.
Very not glamorous, especially the Chest Hospital in Bethnal Green. I mean, like, there was this old man with all these women around him. They were actually bringing him food, which I'm sure was going to kill him the second time. And there was this lady who was my age, but from my head she was older because she was like, she had kids, teenage kids. They were a really nice family. Then this nurse came to talk to her, and she said to her, my love, don't eat that. She said, a pork pie is a heart attack waiting to happen. Which immediately I called Kit, who was getting married next, and I said to him, because his wedding cake was constructed of pork pies. It was in Yorkshire. They had the best pork pies ever. So they just had these little pork pies and they constructed them into a wedding cake. I didn't even have one at that wedding. I was that brave.
Yeah.
So then I was out of hospital and Kit was like, okay, you're doing my wedding speech. Because he's heard Elle's wedding speech and he thought it was good, so he wanted that.
Sorry, with the first one you did the best man have to do a speech to follow you?
Yes. Or maybe it was before me, I can't remember.
So you made it very difficult for him to follow.
I'm not slagging him off. I'm not slagging him off. But I think, it's not that my speech was so great, but my dress was really beautiful.
Okay. It's part of the package. It's part of the package.
I mean, it was funny. People were laughing. I enjoyed that. I like doing wedding speeches for friends. I don't think you would necessarily enjoy... there's people who do this for work. They coach people who write... I can do that. But I think the really special thing about it is if it's a close friend and you really love them and you really went through stuff with them. And I think in the case of both these friends, they were people who, I've seen them through thick and thin and illnesses and heartbreaks and both mine and theirs. Real special. They're special. So that means that you can be moving and you can be funny and, you don't need to do this thing that I know that kind of traditionally people are supposed to do, which is kind of, just kind of tell tales of indiscretion that really don't interest anybody, but are kind of made to embarrass them. Whereas if you really love them and care, then you can just have better stuff.
Yeah, it comes from the heart. That's speaking from the heart.
I quite like that. It's nice. I'm up for it.
That's great. So you got rebooked for the other friend.
Yes, I got rebooked. That was the second gig coming. The funny thing about the second friend's, about Kit's wedding, was that I got there. It's beautiful. It was a posh wedding. It was proper. It was on this. The church was really old church on the top of the hill at the Dales, and really nice priest. I love English weddings. I mean, they're just the best. And so he had two friends in charge to look after me. So basically these two guys told that their main job was just to keep pouring champagne into me before I was sort of doing my speech. And they were just competing who was going to get me more drunk before it was speech time. And I got up and I just stumbled a little bit. And the groom's mum said, I heard her, she said, darling, are you sure about that? Because that is a weird thing in a posh wedding, that some girl from Israel who nobody really knows would just come and do the speech instead of somebody like me. But it was a good one. And then Chris Morris, that was a bit. I didn't know that he was Chris Morris. Even if I would have known, I wouldn't have known who Chris Morris is. But he came to me and he said, that was a very good speech. And then he went to Kit and he said, who's that woman who did the speech? Who is her agent? So that our Kit got it into his head that they need to get me a stand-up comedy course for my 40th birthday, which was coming. Yeah. And I didn't have it in me to even say no. It's terrible. You just wake up there after you had the heart attack and you think, shit, this is it. First of all, I'm going to die soon. And second, I'm never going to have sex again ever. This is the two things I was thinking in the ambulance. Yeah. Once I've established that I was not going to die immediately, I was like... and also, I spurred one thought to the idea that I probably am not going to have any children, which I was not too fussed about. But then I was like, hang on a minute. Who's going to have sex with somebody who just had a heart attack? Probably nobody. Not true. Men are adventurers. This is when I found out. I honestly thought, because men are you're cowards. Come on, admit it.
No, I mean, look, do you know what, right? If a woman is going to have a heart attack, I'd rather, I don't want to kill anyone, but it would be one to say, look, I'm sorry, that what happened to your last relationship? Well, I killed her. How? Having sex with her. That is something to notch on the bedpost. That's one of those notches.
There is a comedian, Scottish guy, let me remember. He does. He actually came to Miss D. Silverhammer, which was my gig. He gave a woman a heart attack.
Wow.
Well, I didn't even gave it to her, but she had it. That was the story, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, that was the joke that I was doing. I was like, so what do you do if her whole body stiffens and her eyes widen and she's breathing really heavy? Do you fuck off and call an ambulance, or do you keep doing what you're doing because you're clearly doing something good there?
That's exactly. Keep going. Don't stop. No. You need like a diver signal, don't you?
If you're dead, it's like a safe word. Just tell me if it's a real one. I guess that's what you need.
Just a thumb up.
Well, we might not be able to. It might be better if you can just kind of go, Theresa May or something, just put it off it. It's an Angela Farage moment. Yeah. So all this was happening during the summer. It's a brilliant summer. All my friends are getting married. I'm having a heart attack, poetic justice all over the place. And then I did the comedy course that they bought me for my birthday. So there were about, I think, maybe 20 people involved in this. So there are a lot of people to blame. Like, if I think sometimes Kate looks at my comedy and thinks, okay, I need to blame somebody else. It's good that I have 20 partners in it. So I went to the comedy course at the comedy school in Camden. This course, it's not bad. I mean, like all the courses, it gives you some kind of an idea what it is about. Like, I've learned that comedians don't make the shit they say up as they go along. I've learned that there's such thing as a set, and that it's written, and it's okay that it's written, that's not cheating, and that people repeat it many times over and over again. I've learned that I'm not the only person to start comedy without knowing shit about comedy, or without having a favourite comedian, or without... my friend Avishai, who was also a part of this scheme, on the week before I started the comedy school, which was, it was on a Thursday, I mean, it was on Thursday, the Thursday before that, he took me to downstairs at the King's Head, because he said that it was a complete disgrace that I've never even been to an open mic, and I'm going to start a stand-up comedy course, at least, get an idea of what it's like. I remember that I thought, it was not, I mean, I love downstairs at the King's Head, the Thursdays are great, this was not the best one, and I was thinking, yeah, I can do that. And then about 7 months later, when I was dying on my arse downstairs at the King's Head, 3 months into comedy, in front of 12 friends who came to see me and another 50 people who were there. Yeah, it took me a long time to dare come back. It took me about 2 years before I dared ask for another spot there. Yeah, so I went to the comedy school. It was an interesting experience. I was, being a journalist, I looked at everything anthropologically.
Which is great. You've already got that writing experience behind you, so you don't really need...
It's good and bad, because if you're a writer, so I was already a published author, and I was writing for newspapers regularly, for English, you think you're great, and it means the dangerous thing about it is that you think you know how to write. You don't know how to write jokes, because writing jokes and writing articles have absolutely nothing in common. It actually gives you more background if you say are a mathematician or some kind of a scientist, because this is what jokes are. It's true, though. It's true.
You go too far into it, because a journalist would be like, look, these are the facts, this is the thing that we're talking about.
First of all, journalists are kind of sticking to the facts. Writers are way too wordy. A joke is a technical thing. It has a certain balance. It needs to be very succinct in terms of wording. You need to have a hard consonant at the end of it, especially if you have an accent, otherwise nobody knows what the fuck you're saying. You need to be frugal with words, and I can't say that enough. You need to shave the fat off, and I'm a floral writer. I like words, I like descriptions, I like things. I'm actually writing. I remember that 6 months in, I was at the Cavendish Arms. I can't remember if it was some kind of a competition or something. Lenny Sherman said to me, Duff, you have the best stage presence in the whole world. You can't write for shit.
Right.
I was furious. I was absolutely livid. And you know what? I remember it to this day. I've been a comedian for almost 7 years now. He was right, but I couldn't hear it. And I've been told that more gently by other people. And I couldn't understand that there was a problem with the way that I was writing comedy until it was about 3 years in. So, you have a very strong blind side that normally has to do actually with your strong side. I was, at the time at least, it kind of turned around now. I was at the time a better performer than I was a writer. Because I was not watching stand-up comedy, and because of and also I have a thing, I don't like saying it because it's like kind of controversial. In a way, and I don't mind saying controversial thing, but this one is controversial against my own grain. But I really do think that, I wouldn't say all women, but I think a lot of women resent the idea of having to learn to write jokes technically. Right. We want to be funny. We also have a tendency to be storytellers and to be entertaining in our own way. Men have no problem with it. This is why the people that you see posting one-liners all the time on Twitter are men. They have this thing. It's a game. They play it as a team. And you can see how they do it. So you can see that, Darren Hall would put one and Lenny would put one. And everybody would kind of do this thing and it would be like a game. Whereas women, I don't know, we seem to operate in a different way. And also, because we are a new presence in comedy, it's changing. It's changing a lot, but we don't really have we have very few role models, and we don't have an idea. For example, I didn't know what a comedian dresses like. The only sort of image that I had in mind was Ellen DeGeneres. So I was like thinking, okay, I need to kind of do lesbian chic. I need to just... So I was just kind of wearing jeans and this kind of cropped t-shirt and with things. And then I remember that it was still during the comedy course, and then one day I wore a dress, and I came in and people were like, wow, this is like different. And I remember Dane Baptiste said to me, wow, did you go on a date? And I was like, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And he was like, well, I don't know, just keep doing that. So I started wearing dresses all that. It became a thing. People were kind of like looking forward to see what I'm going to wear. So I came into comedy. I was super flamboyant. I was wearing corsets and all sorts of things. It gradually... The weird thing is that it's changed, but also my age changed. I still dress up, but... and it became my thing a little bit. It's hard to know, and it's the same with style and with writing and with everything. You just don't really know what kind of comedian you want to be, and you start following different... I think I somehow feel that men are more likely to write one-liners and puns. Men love puns. Women... There are some. I mean, Saskia Preston is a great one-liner comedian. There are a few, but they always kind of belong to the more kind of geeky side of comedy. Yeah, so I think it takes time before, I think for women, before we take ourselves seriously enough to think, what I don't know how to do, I need to invest in learning how to do. I can put money into it, I can put time into it, it's legitimate. It's not, it's... a lot of men are in comedy and they're thinking, I'm going to reach the top, I'm going to be Michael McIntyre. Women kind of think, just do it for a while. It's like, it's my little knitting course, and it takes time. I mean, and before you get like properly competitive, you want to be the best. You can admit it to yourself. You want to be good. You want to be booked to clubs. You want to win at comedy. I don't know why it took me a lot of time to admit that.
I mean, winning at comedy is like... It's a bit, it's sort of different for everybody, being successful at anything is different. It's different for everyone. We've all got limits. We all like to think that it's all level playing field, no matter male or female, gay, straight, whatever. It doesn't matter. We've all got limits. Yeah. And we can only be the best that we can be. I can be. For myself, I can only be the best that I can possibly be. And in the more I get to know myself, I'll know my limitations, hopefully push beyond them as far as I can go. But it's like you still are confined to whatever you are. You know what I mean? But the more you go through comedy, you know who you are better, which is great, because then you can build on that or fix that. Tweak that.
You know who you are better, and you also are able to identify different routes that you can go. So when I say I want to win at comedy, I don't mean that I want to be McIntyre, or I don't mean that I want to be anybody in specific. I don't even want to be a household name necessarily. I want to have a following. I want to have people who like my comedy and would come back to see me and are interested in what I do. By the nature of the stuff that I do, it doesn't have a mass appeal necessarily, but it has an appeal. And you learn to... I think one of the most important ideas in comedy was this thing that Stuart Lee was saying in his book about finding your audience. A lot of people talk about this. It takes a long time, because like in your first 2, 3, 4 years, you don't find your audience. You find what there is in the open mic nights that you do, and this is where they are, and you go to places and you're often surprised, especially if you are not from England. So, like, you learn that there are some places around London where everybody's white and nobody's ever seen a Jew, and which is weird because you hardly even identify as one, and you find that you have to represent it. You find that there are places where female comedian is still a weird thing, where an older woman who just left her house in the evening is a weird thing. I mean, all sorts of things. But you also find that there are places where you go in and you think, oh no, this is not my audience. It's going to be exactly your audience, and you just don't know it. I remember going to Lincolnshire to John Elson gigs. I think it's called The Voodoo Stands Out. Yeah. And they walked in, they looked at the audience, and they say to him, "They're Tories, aren't they?" And he said, "This is actually an old Labour constituency, but I know what you mean. They look like they just came from the golf club." And I had a great gig there. Then again, I was at Brookman's Park, Sandra's gig.
Yes.
I literally escaped from that gig.
Wow.
I ran away. They hated me because I told a joke about Prince Philip. The response of the room to you is not always a result of them being demographically hostile to you or to your politics. I mean, yesterday I did a gig, and there were a few people sitting in the front. I have this whole Brexit set that you've seen this week.
Yes, it's great.
I just popped into cafe mode. I think Sonia Astor was supposed to do 10 minutes there, and she was sick, and she asked if I can just come and do it. So I just came open and ran. But I came in, people came in late, and they sat at the front. They were from Lancashire, Bermondsey, I think. Yeah. And then there was another couple from Kent. Right. And I said something about Brexit, and all these 4 people were kind of going, yeah, we're for Brexit. And I was okay. But it was a friendly encounter. So I kept referring to them through the rest of my set as these people who supported Brexit. But it was a kind of a friendly exchange of, yeah, you don't really want me here, but hey, you love me now. And so it, you can play. What you learn over time is also to sometimes play the hostility. Not every discrepancy is hostility. This is what I mean. Sometimes, though, you walk into a disaster. It happens. But, and you learn with time where you like and where you don't like, but also you learn how to change a room that initially doesn't like you to a room that does, or that does acknowledge its own prejudice, all these things that you learn. This is why it's so interesting. This is why comedy is the most interesting thing I've ever done. Like, you walk in there, and this is it. It's you, and it's them, and you learn to know them, and they learn to know you, and all this is happening within 10 to 20 minutes. A relationship is created in the room. You get to talk about things that are interesting for you. You get to talk about things that rub them the right way or the wrong way. You get to feel a lot of solidarity in rooms that, people that do not necessarily... One of my favourite places to perform, probably my favourite place in the UK to perform is Glasgow. Oh my God. I mean, it's my favorite. And you would think, considering that if I need to think who my audience, normally I would say women, immigrants, particularly, I do good in rooms with a lot of Muslim people, a lot of black people, Jewish people, any minority people, any immigrants, Europeans. Glasgow is not, it's a white city. It's not massively known for its massive gay scene. Gay people also like a big, they're a great audience for women generally.
But you've always been a very warm, high energy and powerful performer. But since I've known you, is that come from your experience as a writer, or from being a lawyer? Do you think that's helped you in your delivery and all that? Okay, some of it is cultural. I mean, I'm an Israeli, and it's a little bit like what we're like. Right. We're touchy-feely, we're in your face, we're quite loud, and we're not the most polite. We're going to make comments about everything, basically, whether it's appropriate or not. And we're warm. We'll kill you warmly, and we'll hug you warmly. Everything is going to be, and That's lovely.
I used to tell this joke when I started a comedy that I think I was doing it in Something to Declare, which was about immigration, that first time that an English person said to me that I'm very forward, I thought it was some kind of a compliment, because in Hebrew, this parallel word would mean you're open, being direct is a good thing. Well, it's not the way it's used in British English. People say that to you, and they don't necessarily mean to say, oh, you're great. They just mean, calm the fuck down, dear. Yeah. So I think but I think my performance has changed a lot, and the way that it has changed is that there was a combination of aggression and warmth, and the aggression went down and the warmth went up, and that was where the wall came off. Because my wall was, I think, in the first 3 years. First of all, I was dressed extremely sexy, which was like a wall in itself. Sometimes it's not just putting clothes on that puts a wall, but also taking clothes off that puts a wall. The other thing was that I had this aggression that was not... It's not really a part of who I am. I think my character on stage was too different to who I actually am. Yeah. And it was very difficult for me. I mean, and I think this is the struggle in comedy, the real struggle in comedy. What we're all trying to be at the end is, and it could take years, the growing up of a comedian is becoming funny on stage in a similar way as possible to the way that you're funny around the dinner table. The further you are from that, the more you still have way to go. Yes. And I think my beginning, I was like, well, I'm trying to kill, I'm going to kill you. Yeah. And I was this kind of dominatrixy person. I don't know how to take this back, but I'm not a dominatrixy person. I mean, I'm not a walkover, and I'm not massively submissive, but I really am not that aggressive or that domineering. I am, I think in Something to Declare, my third show, I probably found the best definition for myself, which really is what I am, whether I like it or not. I am a Middle Eastern Mary Poppins with a semi-automatic umbrella and a spoonful of hummus. This is why I am. And, I mean, it doesn't matter if what I like to be is some reincarnated Marilyn Monroe. What I am is this. And, I'm warm, I'm a feeder, I'm like, oh, come here, I'll make you soup. I'm Jewish in ways that I was not aware of. Yeah, and I'm a little bit middle-aged, which is shit, but it's the truth. And quite nice, actually, which was a shocking thing to have to acknowledge. I mean, it's a problem for me in life, but I thought, how could a comedian be nice? That's disgusting.
It's because when you first start, you're afraid. You go up there, oh, I hope this works. You don't want to die.
You need to fend them off.
Yeah, and you're like, and so that fear causes aggression. We've talked about this before, about we spoke.
I think you had a bit of that.
Yeah, so I had the same thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was on the edge of.
You were angry. Yeah,
I was angry, but I wasn't sure why I was angry. So
and that's also. It's so not you that it is,
That's
and
it.
then you just suddenly you let this go, but the thing with me is that unlike you, I was kind of going around all the time frustrated. I was going and scaring them, and then I was like, why is my audience scaring me? That's not fair. And people were like, the people. The thing in comedy is that you need to find these people who would tell you the truth on one hand, but not offend you on the other hand, which is very hard. But you kind of come to have these confidence, or these people who take permission before they. And people were like, well, stop scaring them. Maybe they will not be scared. Why are you shouting at them? And then you're surprised that they're scared. You're like, I'm going to kill you. And then you're like, oh, they run away.
Trying to control the fire.
It's a bit like this, it's a bear walking around knocking things. I'm like, oh, no. So I had to not be afraid to just be me. It's a crass thing to say almost. And it sounds idiotic to people who didn't try to do this. And you so many times see that. Like, people go a whole circle and come back to being themselves. And I think, why couldn't they've just done that from the beginning? But you can't. It's scary. You're standing there. It's an open mic. People are like, oh my God, what are they going to do to me? Too much think about the defenses that you need to build. Whereas you didn't need to build defenses. First of all, try to make friends with them. Because I think the most important thing that I've learned in the comedy school was in the first meeting that we had. Somebody had to leave the room. It was Dane Baptiste, actually.
Right.
He had to come back into the room and find out what it is that we want him to do. And we decided that he needs to, go and touch the door.
The dolphin game.
I think I did.
Yeah, and they clap.
You clap, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You clap and you cheer. If he's getting close to where he needs to be, you clap and cheer. And if he's getting far away, you boo it. And I was watching it, and then Dan was kind of reporting what it felt like. And basically, the conclusion of all this thing is that the audience wants you to do well. That was a shock to everybody in the room, and to me particularly. Like, especially because I didn't watch that much stand-up comedy. But I think people come into comedy thinking, oh, the audience is the enemy. You come for war. No, it's true.
Totally.
It's true for American.
Totally. I always thought
Totally.
that. I always thought that.
But probably because we're watching quite a lot of American stand-up. Because
just to my fear, I think. I was like, no, I'm going to win. And then it was like, no,
but also
we're all going to win.
You see people like CK come on stage and kind of go, I call the shots here, I do the stuff here, I'm the room. And the whole way that they square up to an audience is like, you think, okay, they're coming for war, there's going to be war. And indeed it's also an audience that thinks that their job is to heckle. British people don't heckle. And even when they heckle, it's hardly ever a quiet heckle. When they heckle, it means they're drunk. And when they're drunk, they're just slurring. It's not that they're going to say something that's going to knock you off your feet. And the worst thing that could happen is that they're going to go, well, or you kill Jesus, which is, I had that one. Yeah, that was quite a tough one. But you know what? That was I think every act has that, defining moment where you had that heckle.
And like, raised up.
You suddenly realize, and you just kind of went, I dealt with it well because I had a joke for it.
What was it?
Oh, it was like this. Okay, so he was a Czech guy, and he was together with a Scottish guy that came to my show in Edinburgh, the show that I was doing with Pavant Kosanti, the Iranian-Israeli show. And he was drunk. I could see that he was drunk, but I got him into the room for the same reason that a lot of comedians in Edinburgh get people into the room, because you want to fill the room. And also it was kind of hot. So I brought them in, and they sat at the front row. So I'm talking for about 10 minutes, and I think that was the time that took him through the massive fog that was sort of around his head to realize that the really important information here from everything that I was saying is that I am a Jew. Right. And then he just started waving his arm at me, and he went like, you killed Jesus. And I was like, oh. And I said, how dare you? You're a cunt. First of all, I said that, and I was like, yeah. Because then I realized I can do that. That's the moment when you think, the audience is on my side. There were a lot of people from the Palestinian Solidarity campaign, and also they already kind of got onto my politics. They were like, okay, we're supporting her. And also, people don't like when somebody's drunk and swearing and kind of heckling in a show, unless the comedian pisses them off first.
Yeah, of course.
So I said, you know that this is not real. This is actually the most terrible thing that you can say to a woman of a certain age. I mean, I'm not a spring chicken, but I didn't kill Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago. How dare you? And then I had the joke that they said that the Jews sold Jesus to the Romans, and this is obviously a lie. They sold Jesus to the Romans for 30 shekels. I mean, if you check the currency exchange, you'd see that this is not even a fiver. You show me a Jew that would send a hippie, would sell a hippie to the Italians for a fiver, and I will show you an uncircumcised Jew. And I was sort of shouting all this stuff at him.
Great.
And then he just got up and left, and then I said, oh no, I dragged him in here, and I thought, oh my God, his heart is cord, and I've spent the last 5 minutes thinking, where am I going to hide his body? So it all kind of went well, and then you suddenly realize that you can think on your feet, that you don't need to prepare for it. I mean, a lot of people come into comedy course or come into whatever, and they're like, oh, you need a good heckle put down, you need a good heckle put down. The truth is that your heckle put down is going to come to you. You didn't need it that much because not so many people heckle.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that heckle don't even understand what you say to them. So, I mean, and the best way is to...
use the audience.
Sometimes you also need the promoter or somebody to just get them the hell out of there.
Of course.
I mean, I had Mark Dolan at Miss Diesel of the Hammer once doing a preview.
Yeah.
There was these two women, they were older, and they were having the third bottle of wine, and they were just chatting to each other, and they were heckling. They just didn't give a shit what was happening in the room. In the end, I just went there, and I asked them to leave, and they wouldn't leave, and I got the guy from downstairs, Aussie barman, who was very kind of like, oh, what am I going to do? And then in the end, I suddenly had that inspired idea, and I was sort of signaling to him to take their glasses, and I took the bottle, and we just walked downstairs and just followed the wine, and they never came back.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you just need to kind of do something quickly. But I think... many people are focused on that, but that's not really the main thing. The main thing is to make the room friendly to you, to make the room like you. What other ways to do this? If you're a likable person, there's absolutely no reason why you should neutralize everything about you that is likable and just be a cunt. Why are they going to like you if you're going to do this?
Because they're going to walk all over me. That's
and
what it is.
I know, but I like it.
They'll see the smiling face, and they're going to just take me out.
But why? I mean, I saw you this week. I mean, we both saw each other this week, which is why it's quite useful. And I was thinking, yeah, this is nice Irish guy. I mean, what was he? And like the whole demur was like, yeah, I'm happy-go-lucky, I'm nice. I mean, it's not like there is also anything about you that they would not like instinctively. I mean, you're of a good age. You're not too young to be annoying. You're not old. You're good-looking. You're nice. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, I look like your nice auntie. I mean, why wouldn't they like me?
Daphna.
I mean, you're most welcome. I wish I could say this about myself. I just go homeless.
Like, for me, I thought that there was nothing interesting about me. That's what I thought. I didn't even talk about my name for a very long time.
It was weird.
I
It's a
wouldn't
great
talk
name.
about it, and I wouldn't talk because I was like, no, it's boring, and I don't like it. And then when I went full time as well, I did 20 minutes on my name.
Right.
And then I was like, I got that out of my system. I was like, oh no, there is funny stuff in here, but I mind everything on it now. I felt really, and how I actually felt about it, because the reason why I didn't talk about it, because I didn't like it. And so you come to that moment of, yeah, you know what, it's fine. And they don't have to like me now. Because for some reason I've worked that kink out of my brain.
Yeah.
That's the same thing, but full time. This year, I've come to that epiphany, if you like, of going, oh, I know who I am now. And I got married, and that's okay, and I don't need their approval, so it's fine. I'm going to really enjoy this moment because I love this so much. I'm passionate about this. So you're not going to take it away from me. I'm still going to be happy walking away from this, even if you don't like me.
Yeah.
And that is the joy of it now for me. It's like, we talk about like you have a joke or a new bit, and you get to that bit. And you just you make it to that bit sometimes because it's a really awkward room, and you're trudging through, and you get to that bit, you're like, I'm finally at this bit which is new, and I love it. Here we go, guys. This is it. You're gonna love it, and I love it. And they all of a sudden go, oh, yeah, great, and then they finally report, and they go, oh, brilliant. This is it, and they're feeling the love that you're having for that, and then you're imparting that to them, and that is why we do it. We've got that new bit, that just sheer joy in that moment, and you bring them with you with that joy, because they don't even have to be there anymore.
But if they are, then it's great because they're with you in that, and all of you are doing this thing. Yes. And if they're not, it's less great. I mean, it's like a date, really, isn't it? I mean, it's like sometimes you're like there, or you're having dinner, you're talking, you're like whatever you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have sex with them later. And then sometimes you're like, okay, I'm just going to keep sitting here and smiling, and I'm just going to keep talking, because what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
And fuck me if I'm not going to finish this steak. But, yeah, I'm not going to enjoy this much. And we're not having sex afterwards. So it happens, and sometimes it's a real fucking disaster. I mean, like, you know, you're out there and the guy is like, one of these guys wearing these courses where they teach them to bring you down. Have you heard about that?
No.
I've never actually met one of these people, but I've read about it quite a lot. I've heard from people who... Okay, do you know these people who go to courses in seducing women?
Oh, the game.
Yeah, so one of the things they teach them there is a thing that is called to...
neg them.
Neg them, exactly. So you kind of go and you kind of you try to do, and some gigs are like that. You're there and there's like they're folding their arms. You know what? Also, I want to say something about folding their arms, because I'm a folder of arms, because I've always been overweight, and I know that sometimes people do this to hide their tummy. So I'm not even taking about. You know, sometimes they fold their hands in a certain way that is like, we hate you. We hate you, and we're not going to stop hating you, and there's nothing that you're going to say in that ridiculous accent of yours is going to make us hate you less. And then you fuck. I mean, I've done a whole show in Kent at the Royal... What the fuck was I thinking? At the Royal Regiment, whatever it's called, thingy. Some military thing.
Oh, military base. Something,
No, it wasn't a military base. It was like the Memorial Royal Regiment thingy in Royal Tunbridge fucking...
Yeah.
It was 50 minutes of pain, like, and you know, if this was like 3 years ago, I don't know if I would have just come out of this alive. I was thinking, this is very unpleasant, I want this to stop. I will cut it as short as I can without not meeting my contractual
requirements.
Yeah, though I actually think that these contractual requirements, everybody would be happy if they would be cut short right now, including the promoter. But what can you do? But, you know, it's... Yeah.
But it's that fortitude that you have after doing so many years on the circuit. It really holds you in good stead for gigs like that, when you know that this stuff works, and you know you've gone in there and done everything you can within your skill set, whatever time you've been on the circuit you've acquired. Because I'm sure the more you're on the circuit, the more options you'll have in that situation, and you can stand there going, you know what, I'm giving you everything I've got.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying the fact that you're really not even going for this. But I'm not goading you. But I'm like, hey, look, you know, this is what I've got, guys. You know, you can really hate this, but we can get to the end of this. It's okay. And I'm not gonna walk away with you taking my ball of joy away. This is my ball of joy, and I'm taking it home. Okay, guys.
But you also know that you would need to do something to renew your body. You know that you need to go and do a gig where you know that they like you. Or you can even look at your diary after a gig like that and you're like, I'm going to whatever. I'm going to do Andy Glix's gig next week. I know this is going to be great. Yeah. Or I'm going to do whatever, downstairs at the King's Head. Or I'm going to, you know, somewhere where you know it's your people. I'm doing Yes Bar in a few weeks. You know Yes Bar in Glasgow? So I'm like, I know I'm going to have a great weekend. I mean, you know, it could be better or worse, or all sorts of things can happen, but I know I'm going to be in Glasgow, and then I'm doing Red Rose, so I know I'm doing the Stand in Glasgow, which for me is like, if I could only do the Stand in Glasgow every day of my life for the rest of my gigging life, I'd be happy. Yeah. I'm like, this is my favorite place. This is, for me, this like mecca of comedy. Like, great atmosphere, super professional. Great. So you know that you're going to have better gigs. I mean, I think it's terrible if you go somewhere, I can't remember this happening recently, where you sort of expect to have a great gig and then it's terrible. But I don't think it happens anymore. Also, I think the way your toolkit is becoming bigger. So it no longer happens. I was actually thinking about this the other day. Do you remember these deaths that we used to die in the first year? Where by death, I mean death, there is no coming back, like nothing in the room. Nobody's coughing, nobody's chuckling. It doesn't happen like that anymore. It doesn't. You will get the response out of them. You will get some kind of laugh. If you don't get a laugh, you will get a groan. It doesn't happen that you plow through. Yeah, so I think this improves. I mean, your skill definitely changes. And sometimes you see new acts do this, kind of go through these 5 minutes of silence and you think, don't stop. I mean, and I think this is something that, do you remember hearing that? I mean, I remember hearing that. We kind of go out of something like that and you cry and there's somebody in the car who's super experienced because they've already been doing it for 8 months or something. And they say, don't stop, don't quit, no, just go do that. I mean, you know, my first gig was so terrible. Not the showcase of the course, which was great, of course, it's always great. But then I went, there were 3 guys who were in the course with me. You know, one of them is still doing comedy. They took me to the Lion's Den. And not this Lion's Den that is now, that I know is somewhere in Piccadilly or something.
Shaftesbury Avenue.
Yeah, no, I've never even been there. But at the time, it was at somewhere in near King's Cross on York's Way. There was another gig going there years later, and they were doing some kind of a cabaret type thing.
Right.
But that was like, it was the Lions Den. Tyrone Atkins was running it. We paid £3. We didn't know that it was a sin to pay for play. I mean, nobody told us.
Yeah.
And it was dreadful. I remember it being absolutely horrendous. I was the last, because basically it was just acts and everybody was leaving. When I was there were like 2 girls in the audience, and I did my set. It was a terrible set. It was just agony. And I don't really know how did I actually come to do my second gig after that, because it was quite distraught. But what I do remember, and I don't even remember where that second gig was, which is strange, because that was the gig that kept me going. But I know that it was a better gig. I think it was probably the Cavendish Arms. Yeah. I was doing it a lot in my first year. You know, it's just... And then you look back, and we've done, I don't know, I think I've done about 1,500 gigs. It's scary to think about this. I mean, I'm relentless. I gig a lot. I think at some point what happened was, also you need to kind of keep a balance, and sometimes it's hard to remind yourself. Because now when new people ask, I mean, there was this week somebody on the Comedy Collective said, I want to do another course. And I was like, listen, if it's not been going for 2-3 years, and you've done the basics and kind of a basic course, don't do another course. Just keep going, and then start doing, you know, work on specific things that you need. And I think there's this gig thing that you don't really know how this works. So basically what you're like is you're like an athlete. You're learning how to, you're just running. You're like a car on a run. You just need to do this thing. And then you can look at it and think, oh, this happened here and this happened there. And also people learn at a different pace, and they develop different muscles over time.
But for you, do you think that comedy has changed you as a person?
Yes, but it's really hard to say how.
Right.
I think maybe one of the main thing is you cannot do comedy if you don't know what you look like. Not just physically. If you don't know what people think about you when they look at you for the first time, when you get on stage and they decide basically within the first 10 seconds if they're with you or without you. Again, it's quite similar to dating. Then you can't do comedy. I think this is really the main thing. You need to know, not just to know that you look like a cross between what's it and a banana. You need to I think this is something that I've learned. It's painful sometimes. It's rewarding, but it means that you need to acknowledge. And again, this is not just about and for women particularly, again, or for people who have body image issues. For women, but everybody does, but. It's not just about if you're fat, even though it's a thing. You can think, they look at me, do they like me? Do they think I look well? Do they like my dress? Do they think I'm fat? Do they think I'm old? How old do they think I look? Well, fuck that. But it's also, what kind of thing do they think I'm likely to say? What kind of type of person do they... There's a lot that they think from this first moment. Some of it is the opposite of who you are. Some of it is, and you need to say things... It's not just about saying things to address it, is that I know what you're thinking kind of thing. It's not about telling them that you know what you're thinking. It's about you knowing what they're thinking. And I think this, I'm getting better at. And it makes me actually feel more comfortable rather than less comfortable. I know that the main thing that they think, I now know that it's not like they're going, oh, there's a fat woman on that stage. It's not the first thing that they think to themselves. Yeah. And that was a very... And they don't think that even when I don't wear a corset. I mean, you don't need to throw your tits at them for them not to think that you're fat. Right. This is not how this works. They could think all sorts of things, and they could acknowledge some things that you want them to know and some things you don't want them to. As long as you know, and as long as your comedy is written to be delivered by that person that they know they see, you're fine. Yeah. You're all right. But it's a hard and interesting process.
So you really, like, the first few minutes, if you like, are trying to show them what you're thinking and how you're thinking. Rather than like, I know I might have some idea of what you may... Because if you're trying to prejudge what they're thinking of you, that can really destroy your stuff, can it? Because it can really destroy your whole writing, all of your writing. Because you're like, I'm trying to second guess what they think,
You need to have an idea what they see. I think maybe that's a better way to put it. Okay. It's not about what they think. You need to know what they see and what they might suspect.
Yeah.
And then some of their suspicions you are just about to confirm. And some of them you're about to dispel. You kind of need to make this decision. And of course you don't know exactly what they're thinking. I think you do need to know what you project. And the same, you know how sometimes you write a joke and you think, this is not a joke for me. I hate that. I hate that, and I hate being told that. And I'm working with the director. Sometimes she says, this is a really nice joke, but go give it to somebody else. I'm like, no. And like, you can't keep this. It's just not you.
Put it in a drawer maybe, and then come back to it. Maybe it'll fit
you. Sometimes it fits you later. Sometimes it's just from a tiny little bit of a different... This week, I just dragged out of oblivion something that I used to say in the past. What was that? I was in a gig... And it was Haron's gig in the South, and there was Sophie Hendrickson, is that what she's called? She was doing some joke about when, you play with your baby's friends and they're saying, oh, are you broody? And I used to have a joke like this about when you're in your 40s and you play with your babies and like how your friends used to love it when you were in your 30s and you would come and play with their baby and they would all go, oh, it suits you, as if their bloody baby was a pair of earrings or, an Olympic swimmer or something. But then 3 weeks ago, when they saw me playing with the very same baby... on his 21st birthday. They didn't think it suited me at all. So this is a joke. I didn't tell this for 2 or 3 years. And then suddenly, because Sophie said it, and I came and said, and I was referring to that. So, sometimes you do that. And then you think, actually, I like that joke. I can just kind of... Because I don't have... I remember that there was this documentary about Joan Rivers, and she had all these cards with jokes. I'm like, oh my God, this is what I want to have when I grow up. Like this whole room where there are boxes with jokes and it's probably going to be called a computer. But I know. They have these things now, mobile phones, and you can like... We're so lucky. It's true.
Oh, God. That's brilliant.
Because you just need to write things down. I don't know how people dealt with cards and things like that. I mean, but it's great. I mean, you go on a bus and you can write the joke in the thing. And if you just don't... So sometimes I go over these lists, I have these things and I'm like, oh. And then you find things. So I think there's all sorts of old jokes that some of them... The thing is that there is a constant competition in comedy between your performance and your writing. Sometimes you write something, it's so fucking good. You don't yet have the ability to deliver it to the fullness of its brilliance.
Totally.
And then you do deliver it to the less of the fullness of the brilliance. And it's somewhere. And then you grow up and you go and find it. Like sometimes your performance has already grown so much that the joke is no longer good enough for you. But sometimes you could just now you can do it. So it's
like
good.
Excalibur.
I think
take the joke out of the stone.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is keep the stuff. Yeah. Keep the stuff, even if you think it's shit. Keep notes. Keep. I mean, okay, these are things that everybody says that. Have a notebook by your bed. Now, I have a notebook not by my bed, but in my bed. And sometimes this notebook is behind my back because I sleep on my side, and I think. I can't be asked to turn around and reach for that. I'll remember it in the morning. Of course I'll remember it in the morning. How will I not remember it in the morning? Bitch, you don't remember it in 5 minutes, you will not remember it. You would not remember. Write it down. Yeah. So so you learn these things. I think that's something I've learned.
And so, Daphna, when is your next? Like, have you got a preview coming up for the Fringe this year? Are you taking a year off?
I've not. I've taken last year pretty much off. I basically because I became jobless in April, which is a very bad month too, because that's just when you need to pay for the Fringe. And I was like, okay, probably I can't do it at all. And then it was some kind of constellation that made it possible for me to go up, and I did 2 shows of Begging to Differ. So Begging to Differ was in Brighton, and it was in Hastings. There's a lovely new Fringe there, and in Camden. And I did 2 shows of it in Edinburgh, and now I'm taking it to Women in Comedy in Manchester next, so at the end of this month, 23rd of October, and then there's Leicester in February, and then Brighton in March, Glasgow in March, and Brighton in May. And then I do plan to bring it to Edinburgh. Things need to calm down a little bit in terms of work, money, don't know, maybe comedy will suddenly pick up and I'll start making loads of money out of it. I mean, it's already, I think this is the first year when I would say that it started bringing a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Like, at least you can, it's a more kind of tangible bit of money than before. Maybe because right now it's the only money that's coming, but it is.
Yeah.
So, if something, I hope that this year will work out in a way that will enable me to take it to Edinburgh. I have until Christmas to decide, because this is when I need to apply. I need a good year.
Yeah, so you're hitting all the festivals, though, that's it.
I'm hitting, yeah.
So have you got any previews coming up in any of the places, or just like you're just going to hit it with the festivals? You got 4 shows, right? So
I will have previews eventually in the spring, but at the moment I'm just doing, I have a show that is ready, and that I am working on it towards going to Edinburgh. I'm assuming that it is going to Edinburgh in the summer. Or just working on it as if it is. If it will not, I will do Camden again.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, by the way. I enjoyed Camden so much that I'm now thinking, even if I do get to do Edinburgh, maybe it's worth doing a few days in Camden and then going to Edinburgh. So like missing maybe the first few days or the last few days of Edinburgh and doing it in Camden. And
an Edinburgh warm-up for you, that's it, and hit the ground running.
That,
something for your poster, you have a quote from Camden, I guess, there'll be someone reviewing it there too.
Yeah, I had really nice reviews there this year, and so I don't know, we'll just see how it goes. I did the Camden Had, they were great, they ran a great room, and I did one night at the Phoenix, which is also brilliant. Yeah, so you can definitely break even in Camden, and you can even make a little bit of money in Camden. But previous year, I was with Just a Tonic, and I love working with Just a Tonic. I'm also I did Leicester with Just a Tonic as well, and I'm doing it again. And that was a good, I mean, there was this whole thing where they rescued us from the whole disaster at Cowgate Head, and Daryl was really decent, and he gave us a really reasonable, more than reasonable, fees for the rooms, and it was a really good deal. But the second year they couldn't offer a similar deal. So I'll see what happens. I have a website, Miss D. It remains. So the website is still called after Miss D, missd.co.uk. The good thing about the website that a comedian called Luke Sargent had constructed for me is that it has a page called Gig Dates.
Great.
So if you want to see me, you just go to this gig date. I mean, I know that I'm like some kind of technology kind of leave me in complete hole, but you can even on your phone you can go there, you go to this gig date thing, and you just know where I am. So you will know that tonight I'm in Kingston somewhere.
Excellent.
And I just need to find out where.
Well, Daphna, thanks for coming on the show. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
Okay, that was absolutely great. Thank you so much.
And that was episode 21 with Daphna Baram. I love talking to Daphna. She's so warm, friendly, very funny. Go and see her. She's got loads of dates coming up. She's doing all the fringes, as I say. You'll really enjoy her. And go and talk to her. She's lovely. The next episode we've got is episode 22. Now, I emceed a gig down in Plymouth, the B Bar, and I did it about a year ago, and I love that place. It's great fun. Really enjoy that room. And I went back again, and this time I've been gigging way more, and I went back with more skills. I had a great time. And the headliner was Yanni Ujisolo. I had Yanni on the show. Yanni closed that gig as well. And it was just great to see what 15 years or so experience can do to a room like that. It was great. I really enjoyed watching Yanni, so I said, right, and I just wanted to speak to him about where he came from and how he got to that point. But you're going to really enjoy that one. Now, if you like this podcast, you can follow us on Twitter. We're there at The Comedy Defect. If you want to follow me, it's at Winter Phonander. If you want to come see my live stand-up gig dates, just go to my website, which is winterphonander.com. You can see my live gig dates there. Come see me, I'll make you laugh. If you want to donate to this podcast, go to Patreon, type in The Comedy Defect Podcast, and donate as much or as little as you want. But if you can't kick something back to us, just leave us a nice review on iTunes or Podbean, because it really helps. We've had a few people, as I say, joining the Facebook group, which is The Comedy Defect Podcast. We're there on Facebook. Join the party. Why not? Leave a nice comment for us. Tell us which episode you like the best. But that's it for now from the Comedy Defect Podcast. We're back next week with episode 22 with Yanni Ujisolo.